Hi, I'm Anna Leahy, and I direct the MFA in Creative Writing program at Chapman University. I think what I'll do is share my screen so that I can do this as a presentation. So this is Business as Unusual, the MFA Professionalization course and Identity Formation. I'll be presenting today with Stephanie Vanderslice and Terry Thaxton. Here's an outline of what I will cover in this presentation. Why this course, guiding course principles we use to develop the course, practical, political, and ethical context, and revisions and what's next. So why this course? In 2012, 4 of us here at Chapman were chatting over a beverage one evening, and we were perplexed as to why our MFA students were not submitting work for publication. Admittedly, as an MFA student, I didn't really submit work very much, but we wanted to change this culture of our program. We also wanted to encourage our MFA students to develop long-term connections with each other. And we asked ourselves, how can we get students thinking about a large project earlier in the program? Because we had been finding students who assumed they had to write their entire thesis during the semester they were enrolled in thesis credits. And then finally, we asked a larger question about where do MFA students traditionally get career guidance and who among us, both faculty and staff, is a good resource. In terms of why this course, and this is after the fact, after we developed the course, I found this article with the subtitle, The Uses of a Useless Credential. And in that article by Childress and Gerber, many students stated their goal for the MFA is time to write. But when the researchers dug down, they found that time to write served a more symbolic function in that it was being enrolled in a program rather than simply writing, which made the time invested in writing feel like a legitimate investment in professional identity rather than a hobby. And I'll just read some highlighted words from a quote from this article that this useless degree was not useless, and instead it focused on artistic identity, income, community, and potential. And those are 4 ideas that I've carried forward. Why this course? Definitely diversity is on my mind. My sense of this was increased when Spar and Young published their article, The Program Era and the Mainly White Room in 2015. And then we've seen certainly discussions of racial inequities in pay and publishing in this past year on social media and in mainstream media. So it's finally being addressed. And I think every MFA program has the responsibility to address these issues. We also have a disciplinary context, and I'll admit that the idea for this panel came from a response I had to an AWP panel in which MFA directors talked about how they made their programs worth the cost when they don't fully fund all students. And Chapman's program is one that does not fully fund all students. It was clear to me that low residency programs worked as mentorship programs, which was really a different model, and that some of them did put networking front and center. Other directors on the panel admitted they were scrambling to take professionalization into account, which made me feel much better about our program. One admitted that she forgot to plan the orientation for the first incoming cohort. And I think our discipline really has an issue with not preparing us for the roles that we will be playing as faculty in MFA programs. Finally, I want to point to Matthew Sales's Craft in the Real World. That book is really premised on the idea that there is no pure craft, and that we've been assuming that MFA programs should be premised on a notion of pure craft and focus on craft. And I think reading his book has me thinking very differently about the tension between craft and, say, capitalism, or craft and career. Institutional context, Chapman University has increased its emphasis in graduate education. We've opened a law school, an engineering school, a pharmacy school in the last decade or so. We had the steepest climb of any university in U.S. News and World Report, and now we're an R2 institution. The MFA program here welcomes 18 to 24 new students each year, with a total of 60 to 65 MFA students, which includes the students who are enrolled in our dual MA MFA program. Of those incoming students, we are able to offer funding to only 4 per cohort. The MFA is a 36 credit program designed to be completed in 2 years of full-time study. Students can go more quickly or more slowly, and part-time students account for why we have 60 to 65 students in the program. The time limit on the degree is 7 years. Teaching assistantships are available, but only to about 10 second or third year students, and they are paid at the adjunct rate and do not include tuition waiver. So the teaching assistantships do not address the full funding issue for us. Students here are not tracked in a genre, and that's been important in developing the aspects course, and many write in more than one genre, even though they're not required to. Another context, of course, is the idea of access and equity, and that has guided this course. Aspects is designed to create a sense of belonging, in part because it supports both shared knowledge and individualized decision-making. Aspects ensures that no student is left out of conversations about opportunities and that every student has a place to form questions. Aspects asks students to build a writing life they can sustain, with emphasis on sustaining it. And Aspects is a space for conversations about how to change literary culture in the future. So we really do have a longer view than the program itself. Here's the course catalog description, and I'll just read the words that I've highlighted, which I find particularly important for this course. Writing life, secondary skills, literary marketplace, support tools. Here are some of the principles I've used to think about and develop this course. Aspects and thesis frame the MFA program. So aspects of a writer is the beginning and thesis is the culmination. Aspects introduces thesis timelines and policies and sets the trajectory toward the thesis. Aspects is required of all MFA students so that every MFA student has an opportunity to participate in these conversations about resources. Each incoming cohort takes aspects together, carrying the common reference points with them through the program and beyond. Aspects is graded pass, no pass to encourage exploration and risk-taking. Some colleagues disagreed with this approach, but I am so glad that we went with the pass, no pass grading. Aspects is resource-focused. The instructor I think of as more a curator. Aspects includes a requirement to submit work, which goes back to our first question over beverages almost 10 years ago. Aspects asks students to consider goals for the writing life, career, and literary culture, knowing that those are 3 separate things that overlap. I think of this course as a curated course. It's always been taught with a slew of guest speakers as part of the course content. When I teach it, I ask each speaker, how did you get where you are? So that students can see different paths and different kinds of decision-making that they might employ. And then each guest shares a particular area of expertise relevant to our MFA students. We have internal guests, including career services. I like them to come in and talk about LinkedIn, which I don't know that much about. The Office of Research, our grants administrator, comes in and talks about grant proposals, and the skills there also apply to residency applications. We have a tech person come in and talk about accessible document creation, particularly using Word and PDFs. And this has been a favorite of students, not only because they really are invested in accessibility, but also because this session shows them how they are typographers and typesetters and layout specialists every time they open a Word document or create a PDF. In addition, we have external guests, which is really a key part of this course. We have included people like book review editor, publicist, agent, literary journal editor, program coordinator at arts nonprofits, etc. Course texts, I think that Stephanie and Terry will also mention several texts. I will just say then that I do require students to get the most recent books by visiting writers who will be on campus or visit virtually during the semester of aspects. I also this year picked a special topic book called Appropriate by Paisley Rectal, and she will be visiting class virtually to talk about decision-making for writers in relation to the issue of cultural appropriation. I also have developed a list of books that covers a wide range of topics, time management, creativity, and so on. And each student will read one book and then present its concepts to the class so that students will have sort of an abstract of 20 different resources that they might use themselves. I keep course assignments simple. Preparation, attendance, and participation is absolutely key. We do require the evidence of 2 submissions, and that goes back to our initial conversation about the course as faculty. And I'm doing this year presentations on the book, the individualized reading, but in the past I have done a book review assignment and required students to actually send out the book reviews for publication, and several have been published, so that gets them a line on their CV in addition to connecting their reading lives and their writing lives, which is really the key part of the book review assignment. And then finally, a writing life plan is a big culminating project that allows them to account for short and long-term goals and the ways that they can sustain the writing life moving toward those goals. And the format is up to them. Some do an essay, some do a video, a Prezi, a stack of index cards. It's really whatever format would work for them for the long term. What's new? We revise the course every year, so every year it's new. We also have now built in fall literary events into the class time so that we attend as a class and build that sort of community and expectation for engagement with literary culture. Publishing Crawl is a one-day program in April that pre-existed aspects, but now we think of it as reinforcing and extending the conversations we have in aspects. The program also added a monthly newsletter for current MFA students and alums that both celebrates achievements and continues to share opportunities and resources with the whole collective. We've also tried to introduce to institutional conversations the idea of portfolio or curated careers instead of talking about the gig economy. What's next? This year, I have an institutional grant for pedagogical innovation to explore the possibility of an open educational resources textbook. Of course, the OER textbook will be designed to serve aspects, and I think it'll also allow more faculty to rotate into the course. However, the OER textbook ultimately will be available at no cost for other programs to mix and match content, and I'd really like to see this as a contribution to the larger field. And of course, OERs can be updated year to year and remain dynamic. I also want to look at areas we haven't covered well yet, things like basic tax tips for writers, how to read a contract, how to form budgets, and to see if we can collaborate with the law school, the business school, other entities on campus that can be resources for our program and our students. So that's my presentation. We are going to welcome your questions, and I'm looking forward to a great conversation.